not to attend, and saying it was anti-Semitic and that it was divisive and it was against peace and against freedom of speech. And my question was, if that's against freedom of speech, condemning it and asking people not to come and support, what is that? So I'm glad that you're here, because truth is truth. And I'd like everybody to remember that today is International Women's Day. And I'd like to take a few minutes of silence for the between 800 and 3,000 murdered and missing Indigenous women in Canada, and also for our Palestinian sisters who are going through equally as much hardship as we are as Indigenous women in this country. So I'd like everybody to stand for a minute or two to remember our fallen sisters. Thank you. And before we begin with our speaker, I think it's important that we understand the connections between what's happening in Palestine and what's happening here and what has happened here. I was recently watching a video that you can't find on YouTube. It was taken down very quickly by an ex-Israeli soldier talking about what happened there. And at the end he said, I owe a debt. I owe a debt to the Palestinians for everything that I have here. My home, the land that I live on, all the resources that I enjoy, and I need to repay that debt. And it really hit me. Because all of you are on Treaty 4 territory, and you owe a debt to those in Treaty 4. And debt does not mean guilt. Please do not own guilt. Anybody's guilt does me no good, and it does them no good. If you're part of the solution, which you are because you're here, then don't own that guilt. If you're going to go out there and be a racist, please feel guilty, but they don't. But yes, you owe a debt, just like the Israelis owe a debt, and we must always be cognizant of that. And in owing that debt, the best way to pay it back is to stand up and to right those wrongs and to spread the word. And that's what we need to do, because it's the same colonizers and it's the same mentality. After all, apartheid came from Canada. It started out here with all the policies on my peoples, and it went to Africa. It went apparently from Israel to Palestine, and wherever apartheid is, it's a little known fact, but it came from Canada and its policies on Indigenous peoples and on First Nations. And so we have to remember that, and if we're going to stand up against it, then we need to stand up against it at home and abroad, because apartheid still exists here in Canada. The UN rapporteur comes through Canada every now and then and listens and says, oh, there's apartheid in Canada, and wraps Canada's knuckles and goes home, and not much changes. So all of us together, standing as true sisters and brothers, no matter what color we are, no matter what walk of life we are, we can and will make a difference. Last night Angela Davis talked, and she talked about global mobilizations. And that's what we need to do. That's where our strength is. And that's where we know we can do something. And I don't want to take much more time, so I'm really happy you're here. And I'm going to have Valerie introduce our most honored speaker that we are so fortunate to have here tonight. And thank you once more for being here. And remember, resist.
Before I introduce Ali Abunimah, I just want to say a few words about Israeli Apartheid Week. This is the first Israeli Apartheid Week here in Regina. It's an international series of events that began 7 years ago as a project of a handful of activists with the Arab Student Collective in Toronto. And since then has expanded to more than 70 cities across the globe, from Jerusalem to Johannesburg, Dublin, London, New York, Mexico City, and also Sudbury, Ontario, Hamilton, Winnipeg, Calgary, Alberta, if you can believe it, and now here in Regina on Treaty 4 territory. So we're really excited to have everyone here tonight. Israeli Apartheid Week has played a really central role in reclaiming the terms and the language with which we discuss Israel-Palestine, given that this conflict has for so long, like the terms of the discourse have for so long been dictated entirely by Israel and its supporters. And I think for the first time now, we're seeing that this conflict is actually, it's not a conflict, it's an occupation, it's colonization, it's apartheid, and it's resistance to all of those forces. And the solution to this conflict is not about a Palestinian state in a series of discontiguous and isolated ghettos that are surrounded by concrete walls and razor wire. It's about the right of return of more than 5 million Palestinian refugees who've been in refugee camps for more than 6 decades now and are scattered around the world, including here in this room tonight. And it's about an end to the occupation and colonization of all Arab lands, not just the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. And it's about full and equal rights to all Palestinian citizens of Israel who live under systematic racism and oppression as a result of their nationality and race and ethnicity. And these are the core demands of the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions campaign, which began in 2005 and has been an inspiration to Israeli Apartheid Week, and also played a central role in the international solidarity movement for the past 5 years, and has made 6 years now, and has made, I think, really tremendous strides in that time. And I think that now, for the first time, we're really seeing Israel and its supporters on the defensive as they're continuing to lose ground in this public relations war and resorting to, I think, increasingly desperate and repressive tactics, such as canceling room bookings for events such as this one at the last minute on public institutions and universities, banning posters, public smear campaigns, banning even the term Israeli apartheid itself. And I think that, of course, most recently, Michael Ignatio's comments, but I think really we should be heartened by these developments and take it as a sign that this movement is really gaining momentum and it's not going anywhere, and it's increasingly a force to be reckoned with across North America and internationally. And I think if I were a Victor Lieberman, Israel's foreign minister, and heard that Israeli Apartheid Week had now extended to the lesser-known town of Regina, Saskatchewan, I would be quaking in my boots and take that as a sign that Zionism and Israeli apartheid's days are numbered.
And Stephen Harper, too.
And Stephen Harper, absolutely. So I hope that this is the first of many Israeli apartheid weeks to come in Israel, but not, or sorry, in Regina, but not too many, because I think that if there's one thing that's been made resoundingly clear from the events in the Arab world over the last few months, it's that what was previously unthinkable is very much possible, and I don't think there's any reason to believe that if we do our part here as international solidarity activists alongside and in support of the liberation movement in Palestine, there's no reason to believe that we can't see the situation on the ground in Palestine be transformed fundamentally in much the same way as we've seen in the streets of Cairo and Tunis and elsewhere over the past few weeks and months. And I'm delighted to have Ali Abunimah here tonight as our keynote speaker. He's joining us from Chicago, where he's a writer and frequent commentator on Middle East and Arab affairs, as well as a full-time researcher in social policy at the University of Chicago. His writings have appeared in the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, the Chicago Tribune, the Financial Times, Lebanon's Daily Star, Haaretz, and elsewhere. He's the author of One Country, a bold proposal to end the Israel-Palestine impasse, which we have for sale here tonight. I encourage you to check out. And he's also one of the co-founders of the Electronic Intifada, which began in 2001 and has been one of the leading sources of independent reporting, analysis, and commentary on Israel and Palestine, and I think a much needed resource amid a sea of disinformation. Ali Abunimah has been a leading voice for Palestinian justice and human rights for many years, and it's my honor to welcome him here tonight.
Good evening. I'm going to do two things. One is put my phone in airplane mode so it doesn't ring. Right? You know, with the iPhone you have so many apps you can never find anything. Okay. The other thing is to put the stopwatch on so I don't talk for too long. And there we go. So, good evening. I'm so delighted to be in Regina. This is my first time here. I had an absolutely beautiful view of the Regina Mountains as the plane approached. The snow-capped peaks, very nice. I'm very grateful to Valerie for her introduction, and to her and to all who have worked to put this event together. I know it's a lot of work when people have busy lives and they undertake that work because they're committed to it, and that's very important to recognize. And also to thank them for all the other events they've organized during Israeli Apartheid Week, the first one in Regina. And I hope that you will come back for the other events. I heard that Huwaida Araf is coming later in the week. She's a fantastic speaker who was on the last Freedom Flotilla to Gaza, which was attacked by the Israelis. Remy Kenazi, a brilliant poet and passionate activist, is going to be here as well. So please come and support them. And bring your friends and family. So you missed the first event, but you're not going to miss the next one too. And I would like to thank Sue for her very moving comments, and also to offer my solidarity, congratulation, and love to all of our sisters on International Women's Day, and to share the recognition of the debt that we owe to the indigenous people of what is now called Canada, and to recognize very much that these struggles are linked, that the policies and the practices that we're going to talk about tonight have a common root in colonialism, in a colonialism that went out from Europe to the world and carried on the same practices everywhere. I've seen it in Australia, I've seen it in Canada, I've seen it in the United States, and we see it still in Palestine. If Palestine is distinguished by anything, it's really only that it is an anachronism, that the kind of raw colonialism that was much more common in the 19th century in Canada or the United States or other parts of the world is practiced today openly in the 21st century. Now it's a little bit more subtle in Canada. You don't have the same kind of this brutal settler colonialism that exists in Palestine. But you did have it. Certainly did happen. I also, if I may, I want to really give some comments on the statement of Michael Ignatieff, the leader of the opposition. I think the statement that he posted yesterday on his website about Israeli Apartheid Week is really so outrageous that it cannot pass without comment. I don't know if I'm breaking any Canadian laws by attacking your politicians.